We are back with the curator of anthropology for Sharlot Hall Museum, Dr. Sandy Lynch, about Prescott history. Great to see you again, Dr. Lynch.
It's nice to see you in a context other than the Indian art market, so thank you.
That's right. Well, and you are always doing, wonderful cultural things at the museum. That's your job, curating that history. But this is a very special one. You've got an exhibit on now in a new space called Prescott Culture.
Well,
new space, or?
We have been working for the past 5 years, 10 years actually, if you go back far enough on this thing, to build a big footprint on Sharlot Hall Museum that's a permanent gallery for the prehistory of West Central Arizona.
Prehistory?
Right, and it's kind of a difficult thing because it starts with mammoths and tigers and bears and goes all the way through to what people most want to know, what's in their backyard, the remnants and ruins of the prehistory Prescott culture people.
Because I know we've unearthed dinosaurs and all kinds of things in our neighborhood, not too far away.
Certainly big mammoths.
What was the mammoth?
Which definitely take us back about 14,000 plus. Yeah, they were mammals.
So this is, so what do you mean by prehistory? Who were these peoples that you're focusing on?
We're looking at a kind of people that can't tell you much, but they don't lie. Because what we're looking at is the remnants of this culture, and what we learn from them flesh out what are some of the stories I'm going to talk to you about today. And all of these are in this new wing of the Prehistory Gallery that just opened on June 30th. And they are part of the permanent exhibits at Sharlot Hall Museum.
Oh, nice.
So, and we call that's what I'm speaking on today mostly, is what was Prescott culture? What was the culture like? It's not exactly like, tickets to the Elks or dancing at one of the local town establishments, but it is a culture, it is a kind of thing that we piece together by the pieces that they have left behind and flesh out what kind of life they had and how long they were here and where they went and that sort of thing.
So we've got some great pictures and things to kind
of
from this exhibit. So
yes.
Give us an idea of what's there.
Well, the Prescott culture is based on people that were part of the Archaic. We know that people lived here 9,000 years ago. Wow. And they used this area. They wandered over it, and at one point they became agriculturalists in the sense that they organized themselves into hunter-gatherer bands. And they even, out of Mexico, acquired corn, which was a miracle food because it created an opportunity to live in one place. And so those two backgrounds form the people that are the base group of folks that have always lived here. Long about 300 to 1050, another group came in called the Hohokam. And the Hohokam brought with them, why they were here, they had a tremendous impact. We know that they had an influence on the architecture of the area, as much as you can do with stones and dirt. And they also left their trappings, which was a unique kind of pottery we call red on buff, and also some other things too, like exotics like shell. But pottery is something interesting. This will give you an idea what science is up. A lot of this is guesswork, but it's based on what kind of data we can generate. Now, the Prescott culture was created around a kind of ceramic where you could find all these pottery sherds, and then you could date roughly what kind of time span they were in, and you plot them on a map around an area. And so where you find these broken pottery sherds out to a great distance, and they're all the same, and we call the Prescott culture one grayware, Prescott grayware, or their decorated pottery, which is what you're looking at right now.
Absolutely
is
intricate,
Prescott black on gray. And so in some ways we can call all cultures, we could call the Hohokam the red on buff people, the ancestral Pueblo or the black on white people, and Prescott is the black on gray people. And if you map this out, it goes pretty much from where you would find near Kingman all the way up to Juniper Mesa, down the Agua Fria, and then as far south as Perry Mesa. So what did these people look like? What was their village like? So the next picture that you're going to see on the screen is an artist illustration. The unique thing about Prescott culture is we don't have a river does not run through it. Okay,
no,
so they are people that had to live on perched water, and they depended on rainfall. And they depended on snowfall filling this springs that they could use. As hunter-gatherers, they didn't worry about it much, but definitely when they started becoming a sedentary, this created a special kind of need. Most of the housing that they had, most of the architecture we find are these unique things we call pit houses that are in this illustration. The total population of the area, you find so many ruins, you'd think thousands and thousands of people lived here, but it's not true. They had to move, and so they didn't invest a lot into their neighborhood because if the springs went dry, they moved and they built their pit houses, which were sort of a quick investment of time.
Right.
And so it looks like there were a lot of them, but actually,
a few just moving around.
at the peak of their presence prehistorically, which was in the late 1200s, Fitzmaurice Ruin only held 75 people, which isn't enough people to qualify as a village.
Wow,
okay?
no kidding.
And the unique thing about that is, if you were a young man here, your village was all your relatives. So you probably had to walk 25 miles to find
a bride.
Exactly.
That's
So-
really tough. Well, and the farming thing was big.
Well, they were different than other cultural groups. They farmed, they had corn. We do have evidence of them using it. But we tend to look at these big conglomerate type pueblos and the Hohokam as being corn, beans, and squash people. Our folks, on the other hand, were something different. They might have been corn and agave, but they were also unique in another area. I'm going to show you a picture of some of the vessels that we've found here. Okay, so what we're looking at is about 60 pots
Beautiful.
that we have in our collection that represent things that were made not here, not anywhere in this region. They come from as far away as Utah, Colorado, and they find their way into our broken pottery sherds in our backyard.
Yeah.
So what this means is trade. So they were unique traders. So I like to look at Prescott culture as not so much corn, beans, and squash as they are, do you want to buy a watch, people?
Bartering back and
They
forth
are,
with each
and
other.
they had some
Fascinating.
great stuff here that they bartered that are total surprises. They were really big on rock. It's what we have a lot of, volcanic rock. So they pushed a lot of obsidian, they pushed a lot of colored materials for pigments, and a lot of rocks that were used into gemstones. Okay, but one of the most unique ones, and you take a look at this next pot that I have that's a jar actually. Now the dimensions, this looks like a pretty ugly. When you're looking at beautiful pottery of the Pueblos, and you say, this is a Prescott pot.
Then this is huge. We have like 15 seconds, but this is so funny because you're
Right.
kind of, it held agave, they had a hollow, but
Well,
it's not very, it's
story
big,
here.
right?
First of all, this jar, this is a jar, and I'm 5 feet, it comes up to my hips. Weighs 26 pounds empty.
Whoa.
Up at Wapatki, there is a little village called Nalakahu, and all of its jars are this. And when we started looking at these jars, we noticed that they have special
we
attributes.
gotta go. I'm sorry,
Okay,
Dr.
why
Lynch.
don't you
Time
come
is so
to
fast.
Sharlot
but
Hall Museum.
This is an interesting thing that they did, and so go to this Prescott Culture exhibit at Sharlot Hall Museum on now,
Exactly.
and you will get the most interesting information. You can find out what this 26-pound jar was for.
That's the best surprise to go. That and many, many more.
Dr. Sandy
So,
Lynch,
thank
thanks
you
so much
so
for
much.
joining us, Sharlot Hall Museum. Don't go away. We'll be right back on Sandy and Friends.